In Bogotá, Colombia, drug kingpin Don Luis is meeting with his associate Fabio, as Fabio is looking to leave the criminal life behind and move on with his family. As Fabio was the record keeper for the cartel, he hands over a disc of all the gang's business ventures in a show of good faith. After Fabio leaves, Don Luis gives the order to have him killed. Fabio returns to his car, and knowing he only has about an hour, he and his men race back to their territory. Fabio rushes up to his wife Alicia and daughter Cataleya, urging them to pack their things. He then hands Cataleya a memory card, telling her that it is her passport. He also gives her the address of her uncle Emilio in Chicago, telling her that once she lands in America to head straight there. Finally, he gives her mother's Cataleya orchid necklace. He then rushes with his family and their luggage to get away, but men pull up outside blocking their exit. Seeing that they are completely trapped, Fabio and Alicia grab their weapons just as Don Luis's men open fire on his men at the gate, killing them all. Alicia barely manages to say goodbye before the couple rush outside to battle the men. From inside, Cataleya sits in silence as she watches first her mother get gunned down, then her father also meeting his end in a hail of bullets. In his final moments, he beckons to Cataleya to swallow the card before he dies. With both her parents dead, Cataleya sits there as Don Luis's men, led by his enforcer Marco, enter the house. One of his men goes to kill Cataleya, but Marco stops him and sends him away. He then introduces himself as a very good friend of Fabio, even having the nerve to call her family. He tries to justify why he had to murder her parents in front of her, and Cataleya just nods in silence. He asks her about the memory card, which she says she knows, so he reaches out his hand to collect it. Instead of a card, Cataleya pulls a knife and stabs him in the hand before making a clean getaway through a window. She swings her way to the ground and makes a run for it, with Marco and his men chasing her. Cataleya runs through the crowded streets, running for her life. The men almost close in on her, but lose her when she hides inside of an empty tank. She gets out, and Marco and his men try cornering her, but she is able to escape into the sewer system. Cataleya exits the sewer in the middle of the city and makes her way to the US Embassy, where she meets with an official there. She tells them about the memory card, and when they ask to see it, Cataleya forces herself to throw up on the man's desk and hands him the card. Once he takes a look, he begins to question her about how she got it, but all she knows is that it's her passport. She is then taken to the United States, where she is given stay and some money. They attempt to put her into foster care, but on their way, she uses the opportunity to escape. She then makes the long journey to Chicago, reading her favorite Xena comics along the way. She finally gets to her uncle's address, where she shows a man the paper her father left for her. He goes to see Emilio, who is beating the crap out of a man. Once Cataleya sees her uncle, all the burdens seem to roll off her shoulders as she breaks down in tears in his arms, crying for the first time since. Emilio thought the entire family was dead, but is glad to see his niece and tells her she is home. Cataleya wakes up the next morning and heads to the kitchen and joins the family for breakfast. She asks about the room she slept in and learns that it belonged to Emilio's son, who was killed. This saddens Emilio, who responds that the people who killed him are all now dead. He sees a drawing she made of Xena and admires her talent, asking if she wants to be an artist. But Cataleya responds saying that she wanted to be like Xena, but now, she wants to be a killer, and asks Emilio to help her, to which he agrees. He enrolls her in school and she gets accepted, but once they leave, Emilio notices that Cataleya looks upset. She wants to be a killer and not go to school, so Emilio suddenly pulls his gun and fires at a random car driving by. He tells her that being a killer will find her dead if she does not have the brains to back it up, and only school can teach her that. He gives her a choice and Cataleya reluctantly chooses school. 15 years later, two cops are on their lunch break when a car crashes into their cruiser. An apparently drunk Cataleya staggers out and the cops immediately arrest her. They drag her into the station, where she is processed by a clearly frustrated cop, who sends her to lock up and orders that she gets a coffee to sober up. A team of US Marshals then pull up to the station, carrying a dangerous criminal for overnight stay. They get the man into his cell, leaving one guard to keep watch. Later, Cataleya is brought her cup of coffee, and once she is alone, she changes off into a skin-tight suit and picks the lock to her cell. She diverts a nearby camera, grabs the spoon from her coffee cup, quietly fills a cup with water, before heading to the electrical room. There she creates a timed contraption to blow the power before climbing into the vents. She gets to a vent fan and the well-timed contraption goes off, shutting off the power and giving her a chance to squeeze through just in time before a cop turns on the power. At the criminal cell, the guard takes a quick break to go use the bathroom, and once there, Cataleya knocks him out. She then takes his gun and calmly enters the criminal cell, waking him up and ordering the shocked man to unbutton his shirt before shooting him dead. The cops and marshals hear the shots and rush back to see the guard waking up and takes him into custody. The marshals and cops then begin to scour the station searching for an intruder. Cataleya climbs to the roof of the station where cops come searching, but using the dark and her speed she manages to slip away from them. She rushes back to her cell, just as the marshal comes bursting in, only to find her soundly asleep. The next day, FBI agent James Ross arrives with his team where he checks out the dead man's body. On his chest is a strange drawing which belongs to the same killer they have been tracking for years. He turns up at the station and locks everything down, but Cataleya manages to slip past them and make her getaway. She gives Emilio a call to confirm the kill before catching the bus back home. Inside, Ross is trying to piece together how the murder went down and orders info on everybody in and out of the station. Later he is going over the details with Agent Williams. With 22 murders in the last 7 years and with the same MO, they think that the killer is trying to send a message and decide to publish the drawing to the public, so that anyone the message is intended forgets it. We then see CIA agent Richard, arriving at Don Luis's American villa where he goes to speak with the Don, showing him the published drawing and noting that the drawing, which is a flower, used to be the calling card for Fabio. Don Luis declares that he has nothing to do with the killings, so Richard urges him to find out who did or their deal of protecting him will end. Richard leaves and Don is angry with Marco, as Marco made Cataleya live that day. Ross and his team have narrowed down the people in the station during the murder and demands history up to 10 years on all of them. Cataleya visits her boyfriend Danny and immediately pounces on him, ignoring his attempts at a conversation as she just wants her cheeks clapped. The next morning, she leaves the apartment before Danny wakes. She goes to meet with Emilio, who tells her that Mama misses her and wishes to see her again, before handing her her next target, a man who stole money from the wrong people and now they want him gone. Emilio then shows her the picture in the papers of her drawings. He knows she is trying to get to Louise, but urges her to remember her family as she could put them in danger. He wants her to stop, but Cataleya has not yet gotten her revenge. Ross learns the drawing is a Cataleya orchid that only grows in Colombia, and begins to dig into the CIA database for more info but gets his access denied. Cataleya heads over to another safe house where she has 2 massive dogs that she trains to eat on her command. That night, we see the target at his home with his girls, ordering his guards to bring in extra security for the night. A van of guards then turn up to the house, and we see Cataleya slip inside. She enters the house using a glass-covered pool with 2 massive sharks, and once out, she readies her gun. She enters the room where the target is sleeping but decides against killing any of the girls. The man suddenly wakes up to see the orchid drawn on his chest and rushes out where all his guards are dead. He nervously makes his way to the pool where he sees an orchid laying in the middle and goes to pick it up. Cataleya then reveals herself from the shadows. She shoots him in both legs causing him to bleed, then shoots him causing him to fall into the pool becoming shark food. Ross reaches out to Richard, looking for help with the recent case, but Richard tells him to fill out a form and wait. Richards then calls Marco, angrily demanding that he take care of the issue. Cataleya goes to visit Danny and again starts to go onto him. He however stops her, wanting to talk and learn more about her as he really likes her. He tries asking her about her life but Cataleya shuts down on him. He stops trying and they begin to make out, but this time Danny tells her to allow him to take charge. The next morning, Danny takes a photo of Cataleya while she is sleeping, and offers her breakfast once she wakes. But Cataleya hurriedly gets dressed and leaves. She goes to see Emilio, who shows her news of people slain in a bar, one of them being his friend. He is angry at her for drawing too much attention to him and tells her that he is done working with her. He had always wanted a better life for her, but since she insists on going to war, he wants her to stay away from the family. He leaves and Cataleya breaks down in tears. Later we see Danny meeting with his friend. Danny shows him the picture of her, before seeing his car being towed. Once he leaves, his friend calls a friend at the police station, sending her the picture and telling her to do a check on Cataleya, thinking he is helping Danny out. She runs the checks in the system, which immediately alerts Ross, who gets the location of the police station in Chicago. Emilio and Mama are in church, when Cataleya comes to join them, deciding to give up her quest for revenge, and Mama breaks down in tears, happy to see her. On their way back home, they talk about how proud they are of Cataleya for finally growing up. Ross and his team get to the station where they match the picture 100% to Cataleya and issue a warrant for her arrest. Meanwhile she is at home. She calls Danny wanting to meet up and he is happy, and mentions how he only had a sleeping picture of her. Cataleya immediately senses danger and runs to check her cameras, only to see cops outside. She runs out of the apartment and into the stairway just as Ross and his team head to her room. Cataleya runs to another room and pulls out a massive sniper rifle she had hidden in the ceiling. Just as the team sets charges to blow her door, Cataleya arms herself and sets charges of her own, blowing it at the same time as the team, who rush the room to find it empty. Cataleya meanwhile is able to make it to the car park and shoots the cameras to cover her escape. William sees the downed cameras and they rush down to catch her. Cataleya hurries over to a nearby vent and is able to escape before Ross can find her. While they scan the garage, Cataleya is able to get changed and escape in the railway. She rushes over to Emilio's place, only to see Mama laying dead from gunshot wounds, and Emilio tied to a chair, having been tortured and killed, and she breaks down crying and apologizing to them. Ross gets home only to see Cataleya there. She orders him to sit on a chair which has pressure-sensitive bombs wired to it and demands that she needs his help. She plans to go after Louise, but as he is being protected by the CIA, she needs them off him, even threatening to target Ross's family if he does not get it done. She then tells him to wait until his microwave beeps before getting up and she leaves. The next day, Ross goes to talk with Danny, who still refuses to help. Ross then gets a call. It is Cataleya, who has a sniper rifle aimed directly at Danny. She warns Danny to give up Louise's address, and when he thinks that he is safe behind his glass, she sends him a warning shot and he agrees. Cataleya then gets ready for her war, loading her guns and also her dogs into an armored van. She then holds an architect at gunpoint and gets the plan to Louise's house. Marco is briefing his men about how stealthy Cataleya is, when a rocket comes flying through the front door, blowing everything up. Marco, Louise and a few men have survived, and they rush to the cars to get away, but Cataleya rams them with her truck before killing a few men. Marco rushes Louise to a secret room, and goes to hunt for Cataleya. She however opens fire from beneath the floor. Marco throws a grenade and a massive explosion rocks the house. Some men go into the floor to check, but Cataleya has already made her way to the balcony and goes full auto on the men. Marco and one guard remain and he runs to hide while leaving the man as cannon fodder, only to hear him get killed. Cataleya enters the room and the two begin to fight. Marco gets her in a choke hold, but she manages to throw them both down. He tries going for his gun, but Cataleya removes the slide and uses it to stab him in the neck. Louise runs out and jumps in his van and drives away. As he makes his escape, Cataleya calls his cell phone. He begins to taunt her, saying he will escape and hunt her down, but turns out the dogs are in his van and Cataleya gives the order to eat, and they kill him. Cataleya then calls Danny, who is not mad, but relieved to hear from her, hoping to see her again. He tells her that he loves her and they end the call before the agents can track her location. With that, Cataleya heads off, taking a bus away from the city. Remember to turn on notifications, so you can watch more movie recaps like this. Thanks for watching.